Excellent. So we got a lot to hear. We have an exciting evening ahead. I'm Catherine Colbert. I'm the director of the Athena Center for Leadership Studies, and on behalf of the center, welcome to all of you. We're thrilled to have you here for our first Power Talk of the semester, and to welcome Nely Galán, who is a distinguished fellow with the center this year and next. And I have to say, since meeting Nely, there's a part of her that is just so gracious and warm that I know will come through tonight. But I just want to thank her, because in every place I've seen her now, that energy and enthusiasm and warmth carries forward. And I have to say, for students, the people I care about the most, Barnard students, that is a quality of leadership that's really hard to teach, except by example. And so one of the goals of these Power Talk lectures is to bring people who exhibit a whole range of leadership skills, the warmth, everything from warmth to power, so that our students can understand and see them in a warm and intimate setting. So thank you all for joining us. We hope you will come back for other Power Talks next semester and next year. Just do me a favor and let's give a warm round of applause for Nely Galán.
Hi, ladies and a few gentlemen. We always love our token men. Let me see if I can use. So it's so special for me to be here tonight because you heard me say, hi, everybody. You heard me say that I just recently finished school. And this is the school that I wanted to come to, that I got accepted to. And you'll hear in my story, I did one semester and I left. Like many kids of immigrants, we had other priorities, and certainly in my case, taking care of my family and making money was one of them. And I just wrote a book called Self-Made, and I'm so happy to be here speaking to you. I thank Kitty and Natalie for helping me come here and coming back full circle to Barnard. But this book is very special because I stand here before you telling you that I am self-made. And that's a very deep thing for me. I say it with total power and total humility. Humility, because when you see that tape, I see my tape, and even I'm impressed by my own tape. Anybody can make a tape that sounds really good. But the truth is that to have that tape, my failure tape is 3 times longer. Not just in my business life, but in my personal life. To have that tape, many things in my life fell through the cracks along the way. And it's never too late to right the wrongs of your life, and it's never too late to pick up those pieces. And luckily, I was able to do that. I was able to go back to school and finish. I was able to clean up some messes in my personal life, and I'm proud to say I have a son that's 16 years old tomorrow, and a mate who's finally a good man, when there have been many frogs I had to kiss first. But I think this idea of self-made is very powerful at this moment in history, because I think these times that we live in demand for women to think about their financial futures. And I was always, maybe because I'm an immigrant, I was always concerned with having my own money and owning my own life and owning things. And I think in this moment in time, thinking like a self-made woman is demanded. We see what the world looks like, and we'll talk about it further. I'm sure many of you have questions about Donald Trump, which I'm happy to answer later. You know, a few years ago, I heard Gloria Steinem say, I wish I had known when I started the women's movement that the true women's movement is about entrepreneurship. Because without your own money, there is no true empowerment. If you don't have your own money, and if you don't control your life financially, you're not truly empowered. It's kind of blah, blah, blah. And you know, when I heard that from her, since I admire her so much, former Barnard student and graduate, without that, what are we really talking about? Because to really make a difference in this world, we have to have money. and we have to put that money to use. Everything from politics, from picking our politicians, to really owning things and really being able to say no to bad relationships, to bad jobs, to bad whatever. You can't do that if you don't have your own money. So I think this is a very timely moment. So how did that girl that's an immigrant that came to this country when I was 5 years old, how did I become a self-made woman? Well, I think it started in junior high, middle school. I guess today they call it middle school. And I think for me, how many people in the audience are immigrants or kids of immigrants? So you're going to relate to this. So you know that as kids of immigrants, we live an alternative life. You are grown up from the time you're little. You translate for your parents. You are the grown-up. And for so many of us, our childhood is very, we're parentified, as they say in psychology school, right? We become the parents. In junior high, my parents had sent me to all-girl Catholic school, which I have some friends here from my Catholic school days. And in junior high, my parents were going through a really hard time financially. And like many kids of immigrants, we say in Spanish, intrometidos, right? Like we're busybodies. We overhear our parents' conversations because we're always trying to save them, right? And I would hear my parents and my mother saying, ¿Qué vamos a hacer? ¿Cómo vamos a pagar esta escuela? What are we going to do? How are we going to pay for this school? And my father would say, don't worry, Jesus will help us. And I was like, I don't think Jesus is going to, like when the nuns call me to the office and kick me out, it's not going to work out. And I had this lady down the street, an older Jewish lady who sold Avon. And she'd always say, honey, why don't you sell some Avon and I'll get you some free lipstick. And so I went to see the lady and I said, remember that offer you made me? Well, let's do it, but it's got to be 50-50. What the hell did I know what 50-50 was? I watched it on some TV show. And she said, okay. And those of you that have been my friends for many years have known that I sold Avon for quite a long time, right? And that was my first foray into entrepreneurship, and it went really well. The first week I sold Avon, I made $200 cash. And after a month, I had $800, and I started paying down my tuition. But I had a Latino dad that was very macho. And for my dad, it would have been unacceptable for his daughter to pay for school. And that's when I started saving men. I went to the nuns, and I said, can you send a letter home or something and say that I got a partial scholarship or something? And they did. And so I brought the letter home. And when I came home and I showed it to my parents, my mother goes, ¿Qué dice la carta? What does it say? And my father goes, oh my God, your daughter is a genius and Jesus helped us after all. And I think that says it all, right? I think that was the beginning of my power because I knew I could fix any problem. Does that sound familiar, ladies? But it was also probably the beginning of the end of my childhood because I knew I could fix it all. And I think the seed was born inside of me at that moment. I think for so many of us, this idea of entrepreneurship or self-made, of really taking over your life and thinking in a different way, comes often from places of pain. And for me, I had a second painful experience that really sort of threw me into this new life. And that was that when I was 22 years old, I was running a little TV station in New Jersey, in Teterboro, Channel 47, the Telemundo station in New York. And it sounds very glamorous, but it was very cuchifrito. Very cuchifrito. We were like 8 people in a little TV station, and it wasn't Telemundo at the time. It was an independent station. But I loved it. I killed myself, like all of us do, right? We over-deliver. We kill ourselves. We work 24 hours a day. And I worked there for 3 years, had no personal life, worked 7 days a week. And one day I walk into the office, and the lawyer for the company says, oh my God, I have great news. We sold the company. I go, ¿qué? What do you mean we sold the company? And I saw myself, like I went into that fear mode that we go into when we're employees and we think we're about to be laid off or fired. And I was so angry at my boss, who was this older man that owned many companies, and this was like his little no big deal company. And I never saw him. It was like, this was like his little tax write-off company. And I went into the city and I went to see him and I said, how could you do this to me? How could you not tell me the company? And I was like, started to cry. You never cry in business. I was like, "Ah!" And he goes, young lady, those are my own chips. Those are my chips. Go get your own chips. And I was like, este viejo odioso, horrible. And then I went home. And by the way, he gave me a great severance package and all that. But in my anger, I thought, I'm going to show him I will never work for anyone again. And in that moment, I thought, I'm going to start a business. And I will tell you, since we have some people in the room that knew me in those years, I spent 4 years trying to start a business. And I had saved a lot of money. And I moved from my Central Park West apartment to a $300 fourth floor walk up in the East Village, all because this boss had said, when I was your age, I started a business and I lowered my overhead. Because I didn't know that from my parents, right? And so I did that. I lowered my overhead and I started this business. And for 4 years, I did not make one penny. Why didn't I give up? Because my parents were losing it. Dios mío, you're going to lose your looks, find a husband, what are you doing, get a job. Because the world will tell you you're crazy. Kathleen, who's sitting over there who knows me, we had a mutual friend that was working at HBO, and I'd get like an office for free, and I did steal a few supplies, didn't I? Yellow stickums and pens, anything. For 4 years, I hung out there, and I was also a stringer for CBS, a reporter. Thank God I had those skills to make money on the side. In the 4th year, I was literally fighting with God. Dear God, por favor, can you throw me a bone? Are you trying to tell me not to do this? But why didn't I give up? Because that old man that had been my boss said to me, when I was your age, I started a business, I lowered my overhead, and I didn't make money for 10 years, and then I became a millionaire. And I kept thinking, well, I'm only on year 4. Well, in the 4th year, everything started to happen. So most women give up on year 2, statistically. And it doesn't mean it was happily ever after, because nothing in life is happily ever after. There have been many ups and downs of my business. But I did start the business, and from that moment on, it happened. And I've learned a lot in the years since then of having a business for so many years. A number of years ago in 2008, when the economy crashed, I finally, and I want to tell you a lot about this, I had finally made enough money that I didn't have to work. I could work because I wanted to, not because I had to. What we used to call retirement. And I decided that if I died in a year, one of the things that I would regret is that I didn't that I didn't finish school. So as you heard me say, I went back to school. And it was an incredible experience for me to close the gap, not even so much about a degree or whatever, because at that point I didn't need it. It was more because I had skipped entire pieces of my life that I was able to close and finish. And it was an incredible experience to take the time to give myself that gift. And during that time, I decided that I was going to talk about entrepreneurship to women, because I would have never, at 45 years of age, who gets to do that? To go back to school, pay for it? And so I've been on the road for 4 years. First, talking to Latinas, because I wanted to help my own community first, and talk to them about entrepreneurship. And then so many other women showed up. Multicultural women, all kinds of women. And this is why this book, Self-Made, has been inspired by my 4 years on the road. So let me tell you, because especially you youngins that are in here, I love you all so much, and I want so much for you all to succeed and to not have to go through what so many of us have gone through. So I want to share with you, what have I learned? And I think it's important to say that, there's cobwebs in our brain that don't allow us to fully be empowered and take all that is out there for us, because you are living in a time that is exceptional for women to really do anything you want. When we were growing up, many of us, we were the first generation after the women's movement, and it was all about, you can do anything, but we really hadn't focused on the money piece yet. And the money piece is important, and never has it been so easy. So let's talk first about the cobwebs in our head. What's the number one thing I've learned in my life? That you have to kill Prince Charming. There is no Prince Charming. No man, no woman, no company, no government, as if we haven't noticed, is going to save you. There is a part of us that still, it's human. I think there's a part of us that thinks, if I'm a good girl, if I do the right thing, if I do, if I'm really good at my job, somebody will recognize me. And that person that I'm in a relationship with is going to, see me for who I really am and save me. And really, we're putting something on other people that it's kind of setting them up to fail. They can't read your mind that you're thinking these things. And I think when we finally realize that we are all we need to get to where we need to go, it's very empowering. And I think that is the beginning of this journey, is to know you are it. You are Prince Charming. You have everything inside of you, and all those other things around you are not going to come through for you. And that's not a negative thing. I have a great relationship, but I don't I don't expect that person to be my everything. I expect them to be the icing on the cake, not the cake. And that's not like a negative. That's not like I'm settling. No. It's that human beings are human. Bosses are human. Presidents of countries are human. Mates are human. And when you count on yourself, there's a much bigger chance you're going to get to the Holy Grail. I think it's important to say that in order to get to where you need to go in life, you have to make fear and failure your best friends. Those of us that come from traditional cultures, we are fear-ridden. And I know all women are fear-ridden, but we are really told to be afraid and, oh my God, and failure is a bad thing and there's a stigma. But in fact, fear shows up every day of your life. People tell me, you're so fearless. I appear to be fearless. I am fear-ridden. The only difference is that I know for a fact that fear is not a fact. It's just a feeling. And when fear shows up, I've learned to have a relationship with fear where I know she's telling me something. I know to respect her. And I know that she's telling me to do it anyway, because life is short. And failure, I already told you. I cannot tell you how many times I have failed. And failure is harder because failure can bring you to your knees. I have slept many weeks and been paralyzed by mourning failure. But I got to get up, get back on the horse, and do it again. Because I will tell you this, most of my greatest successes, whether it's personal or business, have come right around the corner from my worst failure. Failure shows you one little piece that's missing that you need to learn. And so fear and failure have to become two things, like people almost, like I call them women, that I have a relationship with. And the sooner you do it, the easier. And we live in times when Silicon Valley, the men high-five each other when they fail, and it means, hey, no big deal. Next time you're going to hit it out of the park. We have to learn from Silicon Valley because they're right. I wish somebody had said to me that to be chosen, you have to choose yourself first. How in God's name am I going to help you or choose you if you're telling me, oh, I like to cook, maybe. Are you a chef or not? Tell me you're a chef. Women, we diminish ourselves. When you say, I'm a freelancer, is that the same as saying, I own my own company and I'm becoming self-made? That's what you really are. So I don't care if you are selling clothes out of your closet on eBay one day a week. I don't care if you've invented something. I don't care if you're a corporate employee and you got like jewelry on Etsy. You are becoming self-made. And we have to stop diminishing ourselves by how we speak about ourselves. Men don't do that. Men will tell you they're 10 times better than what the thing that they really are. And that humility, that false humility we have isn't working for us. And not in this moment. I also think it's important to say that in your pain is your brand. When I go meet women around the country and they say to me, oh, but you don't know what happened to me. I can't do that because you don't know what I go, there's not a thing that you can tell me that I haven't heard, okay? Because we all have a pain story. Do we all not have a pain story? And there is not a pain that you can tell me that I can't turn into a business. Because you are an expert in that pain. And you're not alone in that pain. And other people have that pain. And so what does that mean in the startup world? you have a problem you need to solve for yourself and others. And there is a reason you were given that pain. And unless you take that pain and work through it, and work it so that it makes you money and that it actually is something that is your mission and your money, you're leaving it on the table as an excuse when it's there to show you something. So in your pain is your brand. You heard me say already, don't buy shoes, buy buildings. And I mean it. And let me tell you why. People that meet me think that I've made all my money in TV. Well, TV is a very up and down business. Sometimes I've made a lot of money and sometimes I've made nothing. The thing that has allowed me to work because I want to and not because I have to, and people in the room know because I have to say, because Kathleen and I worked together for many years, and I remember the day I bought one of my buildings, and Kathleen says, "Are you sure? Are you going to go broke?" Remember? And I said, "Kathleen, this is going to be my retirement. I just didn't think it was going to come as soon as it did." I have made 5 times the money in real estate than I have in television. And we're going to talk about it because I want to leave you with this. This is called making money while you sleep. Has anybody ever heard that before? Who's heard that? See, women don't get told that. I'm going to explain to you exactly how that works in a minute. So we've got to have, when I say don't buy shoes, buy buildings, I mean it literally and not literally. You have to have a big dream. You have to have a big idea. And we cannot spend our money on things that really are ephemeral and are going to go away. You've got to invest that money so that that money makes you money. And later on, you have power and freedom. So we'll talk more about that in a minute. And I already said make money while you sleep, which I'm going to talk to you about. I want to make sure that I leave you with some real meat and potatoes that you can take home. So let me tell you a few things that I think nobody tells us as women, and I'm going to show them to you right here. I think when I talk to women, they go, well, self-made, what is that? And an entrepreneur, that feels very grandiose to me. And I want you to know that there are many ways to become self-made. And all you young women, this is a muscle you have to begin now. Even if it's 1 hour a week. Remember how those of us that are older, we didn't know we had to exercise, and now everybody exercises. The muscle of entrepreneurship and becoming self-made, it's the new ticking clock. It's not whether you get married or have babies. It's when are you going to start becoming self-made. These times are very important, and this is the best time in history, and we're going to talk about it. So all the ways that you can become self-made in the sharing economy, driving a Lyft, 1 hour a week, 2 hours a week, 3 hours, eBay. Let's clean out our closets, ladies. But you have to engage the muscle and learn how to do it. People think that you can only become self-made if you invent a company, a product, or a technology company. But in fact, that's the hardest way to be an entrepreneur. You have to have that determination and kind of ego to be able to withstand very difficult things, to be a creator. But you don't have to just do that. There's other ways. So besides sharing economy, you can disrupt an existing business. One of the ladies I met on the road was Latina, and she goes, I don't like these card companies. They don't say Latino sayings. And she started a little card company with Latino sayings, and she was bought by a big company. So you can disrupt an existing business. Let me keep going. You can buy a franchise. If I had to do my life over again, I'd buy franchises. It's color by numbers. You don't have to do it alone. You have all these other franchisees, and the other day we were in Dallas, and I met a Latina who had 10 McDonald's. Not that we want to buy McDonald's necessarily, but 10 McDonald's. She's making $10 million a year profit. But think of all the franchises that exist today in yoga, in tutoring for kids is the biggest up and coming franchise. You can buy an existing business. How many of us have friends that or your family members have friends that, are getting old and want to sell their business? And how about creating a brand online and monetizing it? Like one of our Adelante ladies, Crafty Chica. They created a craft line online. You can partner with a friend, a group of friends or your family, but get a prenup if you partner with your family because you don't want to have a fight with your family. So what do we have to do? What is the most important takeaway for you? I want you to understand that what we're looking for is to create a rich life in every way. Rich is not a dirty word. It means rich in love, rich in family, rich in everything. How do we do that? Is it bad to want to own your house and be able to go on vacation with your kids and all that and live an abundant life? But we have to change our mindset from instant gratification to goal orientation, and not little goals, big goals, because it's our moment. Make money while you sleep. This is like a boss said this to me, and I go, oh my God, he's speaking Chinese to me. I don't understand what that means. What it means is that you have to make money. You have to save money. The money you save has to be invested. And that investment is not something you work at. It could be stock, it could be real estate. While you're sleeping, it's growing in value. And eventually, it's worth a lot. And that's the only way you're going to make money while you sleep. And I don't think you ladies realize that to retire in this day and age, if you were to live 20 years past 65, which in today's age is nothing because we're all living to be 100, you know, if you only needed $5,000 to live a month, which let's talk about that in New York City. If you only needed $5,000 a month, that's $1.4 million for 20 years that you have to have put away. Or you're going to be depending on the state or whatever, or your kids or whatever. So this is a key thing that women need to know. So I want us to all think about, why do we want to become self-made, even if it's an hour a week, part-time, full-time. Start now. So, I mean, for those of us that are older, you don't want, when you get laid off at 50, you don't want to be panicking because you haven't engaged the entrepreneurial muscle. And for you young women, you're so lucky. You can start this now. We want to be out of survival mode. We want to work because you want to and not because you have to, while you still have time to do great things. You want to be able to reward yourself and your children with, you know, owning a home, going on vacation, paying for your kids' school, sending yourself back to school. You want to sleep at night because you're not worried about survival. And what does that feel like in your body? Empowered, self-reliant, and self-made. That's what it feels like. And I just want you to know that in 2008, when the economy crashed, multicultural women, out of necessity, became the fastest growing entrepreneurs in this country and around the world. And now, with all of this, with the digital age, there are no barriers to entry to get started. So for the first time in history, all women are united in a quest for a financial future we can control. This is our moment to become self-made. Thank you. Ask questions.
So we're going to take some questions from the audience. Oh, here we go. Now, we're going to take some questions from the audience. But I have to say, you opened the door a few minutes ago to tell us about Donald Trump. Okay. So I'm going to start there. Is he really as miserable and awful as the rest of us think he is?
My experience of him doing the show was very different, I have to say. And which really perturbs me because it makes me wonder, what are people willing to do to win an election? That is not the man that I met. In fact, you know, I did find him very smart as an entrepreneur. I don't think he should be the president because, and for a reason that's very, besides the fact of everything he said, which tells me that, you know, he's willing to sell his soul to win an election. But besides that, I think we don't realize that the President of the United States is the #1 employee of the people. He's an employee. You know, if you said to me, would you want to run for president? I'd be a horrible president because I'm an entrepreneur. I'm like a dictator. Those of us that come from countries where there have been dictators understand that Donald Trump has the personality the personality type of a dictator. As an entrepreneur that never gets told that he's wrong, when I see him say to people, "You're saying bad things about me, so now I'm going to say bad things about you." I mean, is that what a president does? The president is an employee of the people. And so I ask all of you to really, because a lot of women have said to me, "I'm not going to vote this year." And I'm like, "Are you kidding me? Are you really kidding me?" This is the most important year for us to stand up and vote. And I think that we have to really think about, because I also hear a lot of people talking about Hillary and that, Hillary's not trustworthy and this and that. Let me ask you guys something, because I look at Hillary and I go, is your mother has your mother done everything right? I mean, those of us that are young, I look at all of our mothers and our grandmothers and our aunts and even me. What did I tell you? I have failed 1,000,000 times. And I say, they're not perfect, but man, have they worked hard and killed themselves. And can they not cut a break? And sometimes we're not good to each other. And I think we have to understand that a woman like Hillary that's running is our mother. She's our aunt. She's our grandmother. Is she perfect? No. Are any of those men perfect? Because they're, por favor. So when I look at that and I go, here's a woman with she has had every job on the planet. She has worked so damn hard. Does she have anything else to prove? And it's not enough. What more does she have to do? Does she have to wipe the floor? What more does she have? Okay, so we don't criticize men like that. So it's really like very interesting to me what's going on, and it's very painful. It's painful to watch what's going on. And that's why I say kill Prince Charming, because our government sure as hell is not Prince Charming right now.
All right, so let's take some questions from the audience. I'm going to come back with a few more, but who's got a question for Nely?
Yes?
I met you through Nell Merlino, Make Mine a Million. I wonder if you could tell us about that experience for you. Were you involved with that?
I'm so glad you asked about that because I love Nell Merlino. So Nell Merlino is a woman that started something called Count Me In, which is an organization that really inspired entrepreneurs to go to the next level, and they would award money to different entrepreneurs. And Nell has been a lifelong advocate of women. She started Take Your Daughter to Work Day. She's always been very pro-women. And to tell you the truth, it was when I met her, as Latinos, a lot of people think, those of us that come from traditional cultures, we're not that philanthropic. And what it really is that we are very philanthropic with our families. Am I right? But I had never really witnessed a woman, and when I met Nell, it was the first time I met, and here's this white woman that's giving back to her community. And it really inspired something in me, and I thought, that's the kind of woman I want to grow up to be. Now, I tell women all the time, and I know some of you are here in the audience, that I know those of us, again, that come from so many traditional cultures, we want to help and we start nonprofits. And I don't want you to do nonprofits because I want you to make money. And I tell you, you know what? Whenever young women say to me, I'm starting a nonprofit, I go, are you rich? Because if you're not, let us older people that have money to take care of that business. You go make money. Because I don't want you to be viejitas and not have money. But Nell Merlino inspired me tremendously to do Adelante for my Latinas, and then now to do Self-Made for all women. And she's still my mentor, and you're going to see she's mentioned in the book quite often. Thank you for asking that.
There's a question down here.
Can you speak a little bit, now that you just mentioned mentors, can you speak a little bit about mentors during that your whole journey?
Well, it's funny because in my mind, somewhere along the way, I started thinking, like when people would ask me years ago, who are your mentors? I really thought, I would say to people, I have had more men mentors than women. And in writing the book, I really realized that I was completely wrong. Because I had to unravel my entire life. And I realized that in a way, I had met all these women along the way, and they're all mentioned in the book. And I realized that I didn't think of them as mentors because I was acting as if I was them. Like, I had this one boss at 17 magazine, Andrea Robinson, who now runs L'Oreal, and I thought she dressed right, and I thought, I dress cuchifrito. And I started dressing like her. And then I met this woman, Aida Barrera, who was a Latina, TV producer, and I thought, well, I can do what she does. And I started almost behaving like I was her. And I realized that I almost, for periods of time, was like taking on an acting class and like behaving like them and taking pieces of them. So I didn't really integrate that they were my mentors. And then in writing the book, I realized, oh my God, they're all inside of me. I am like a compilation of all these women that gave me little parts of them, and I turned it into my own voice. So it's a magical thing, and it's one of the things that I'm really going to challenge women on the website to tell us the women of their life, because I realized I had all these women of my life. Yes, Joan Fallon, my co-fellow of the Athena Center.
Hi, thank you. That was terrific. I believe that entrepreneurship, because that's my life right now, is a personal journey. And in order to grow your business, you have to grow yourself.
Oh my God, thank you for saying that.
So what made you go back to school and get a PhD?
Well, I didn't think I was going to go get a PhD, to be honest with you. It all started because in 2008, the economy was real. It started from a place of fear. The economy was bad. I had just come off Celebrity Apprentice. It was the best year for me, career-wise, in a weird way. And then all the TV shows I was doing were frozen. It was another where, your company's going to go down in revenue. And my mate, my good mate, after many years of the bad frogs that I was telling you about, I went into my immigrant panic mode. Oh my God, here we go again. And he's like, Nely, you don't have to work another day in your life. And I go, no, that's not true. Because you really never feel like you have enough as an immigrant. And he's like, you really don't have to work. All your buildings are rented. You have all this revenue. If you were going to die in a year, what would you do? And I said, I'd go back to school and finish school. And my son said to me, who was 8 years old at the time, said, Mom, why do you have to go to school? You've done really well and you didn't finish college. So why like he was trying to say, because I don't want to have to go either. And I was like, oh, no, 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 no. And so I went back again. I said, I'm just going to go back, and I had a couple credits left to finish my BA. And I'm like, I'm going to go back and finish my BA. And then I went back, and at first, again, when I went back to school, imagine that the first month I went back to school, one of my professors says, what is this paper you wrote? You write like a rapper. And I thought, and I went back home, and he goes, here's Strunk and White. You need to learn to write all over again. And I went back home, and Brian said to me, oh my God, if somebody told me that, I'd quit. And I go, I kind of liked it. He's right. I've been working in TV. I write one-liners. It's all marketing thing. I don't know how to write. Thank God somebody just told me that. And it was such a challenge. And then once I got past my fear that that I could never work another day in my life, then I was like, why did I ever work? It's like when you have a baby, and at first you think, oh my God, I'm going to miss work. And then you go, oh no, I could maybe take off a year. And it was the same thing. And then I fell in love with it. And I was going to psychology school. And I really unraveled all the demons of my life. And then I really felt like I cried so much. And I got so in touch with all the pain of my life that I never wanted to leave. And so I did a 6-year program in 4 years. And I promised myself, if you finish these 6 years in 4, I'm going to take you on a trip around the world. And I did. Because that was the #1 thing on my bucket list. And I went on a trip around the world. And I gave myself that gift for finishing. So if I can do all this, you can too, ladies.
So I'm interested, part of being an entrepreneur is to be an advocate for your product or your company. But women tend to have a difficulty being an advocate for themselves. So I want you to talk a little bit about advocacy both for yourself and for others, and how that works in the world of entrepreneurship.
Well, I think you have to do it for yourself first. I mean, I know you guys, I present myself as an extrovert, but I'm really an introvert, and I'm really like a quiet person that has had to develop an extroverted side to sell. I always say to people, I'm really like Cinderella. I turn into a pumpkin at midnight. I do. I get like, I'll go to a business. I never go to, Kathleen and some of the people that ever know, I hate parties. I don't like to go to social things. I go with the mindset of it's work, I got to do my job, and then I leave. and I turn into a pumpkin, and I take off all the makeup, and I put my sweatpants on, and then I don't want to talk to anybody. I think that how I did that, you know that bag you gave me, what would Gloria do? I think that along the way, these women that I didn't realize were my mentors, I would say to myself, how would this person act in this moment? Again, the women in the audience that know me know that I've raised a lot of money. And that is not a skill as an immigrant from New Jersey that anybody, my parents never asked anybody for money, whatever. And I watched other people ask for money, and I go, and sometimes it was a man. What would Jerry do? Jerry, so in the moment I would get scared, and I go, okay, take him inside your body and speak through him. Acting is a very good skill, I'm telling you, a very good skill. And then I go, well, I want this much money. And then they go, okay. And I go, oh my God, it worked. I'm going to do it again. And then you practice, and you keep practicing. People know this. I have never been a very good dresser. I'm kind of, not to say anything bad about New Jersey, but I was kind of a little New Jersey-ish. And at different times in my career, I've hired stylists. And I just would and they would tell me, you need to wear less is more, you're loud. And I'd be like, well, I have to trust that they know better than me, right? So I also have hired a lot of tutors. When I was running that little TV station, I didn't know how to read financials, and I hired a tutor. And I have since worked with a lot of billionaires, and they all hire tutors. So if you hire a tutor for your kid, why can't you just admit that there are parts of your life you don't know anything about? Natalie's right now my social media tutor, because I'm not that great at it. So I think that we can't expect to know it all. But you've got to know that you can do it. And you do have to develop advocacy. The first thing about advocacy for yourself is what I said before, declare yourself. Even if it's scary, just do it. And somebody will go, oh, you're a chef. Okay, you're a chef. And then you go, oh, that wasn't so hard. Do it again. It's a muscle. You have to practice. And then to advocate for others is actually easier than to advocate for yourself, because it's not about you. And so you get indignant about how someone else is being treated, or that someone else isn't standing up. You go, come on, say that you're doing this. But the most important thing is to first advocate for yourself, because you have to get that muscle down. And it's practice.
Down here in front.
How do you deal with being different and still being yourself, and still, meeting with business people, raising money? Because I believe what I have found personally is that they expect to see, when they meet with a professional woman, they expect to see someone like Marisa Mayer, someone poised, who speaks a little bit, slow, blonde. So how do you
That's a great
deal
question.
with being different?
Look, I have to say that I was very lucky, because my business for so many years was in the entertainment industry, and I realized early on that different was good. In fact, I went the other way. Like when we were at HBO, which was one of my clients, I put a banana tree in my office, and I put crazy wallpaper and all that, and they actually thought I was the coolest thing in the world. But to pull that off, you have to act like I'm cool and you don't know what you're doing. And I'm like, it's almost like if you're a rapper in a situation and everybody's like, but then everybody wants to be like the rapper, right? It's all about how you carry yourself in these things. There are industries where that doesn't work, right? Where they want you to be Marisa Mayer. And I notice you have an accent, and a lot of women that I talk to say, you don't understand. There's a bias. There's an unconscious bias around accents unless you have a British accent. And then they think you're smarter. But I think when I see women that succeed with accents, I just did a webinar with a woman named Jovanka, who is Latina, she's black, and she has an accent. And she just carries it like I'm the coolest person in the world. So you do have to really work with your feelings inside that it's less than, instead of that it's actually better than. Let's think about it. In 7 years, all the multicultural women in this country become the majority of this country. Why are we still acting like we're minorities? Why are we not acting like what we are, the #1 consumer in America? the most important buying power in the America. Together, all the multiculturals, the number one voting bloc in America. But we're still thinking, it is like when you gain weight and then you lose weight and you can't see yourself as that woman that lost the weight. And I've had that issue too, because I've had weight gains and losses. But it's the same thing with being different. If you see it as a negative, somewhere, even in the smallest way, everyone else will see it as a negative too. If you act like, I am the future of this country, and if you don't buy into me, you're lost. If you walk with that mindset in your brain, you walk through the world in a different way. And I think that for a very long time, I did have that attitude at one point that I thought, but then I switched it. And it was practicing and practicing and practicing being in the body of other more empowered people till it finally became my own. You have a question?
To me, becoming a social entrepreneur, somehow it was easy because I was in tune to why I felt I wanted to do that. Correct. And so it was an intuition. It was me listening to what I felt it was something really close that mattered to me, and was developing this nonprofit for young Latinas. But you asked me this at Google last year.
I did ask you.
You asked me, what are you good at? And I spent a week thinking about that.
Yeah.
And it was interesting that one day because I've been a personal trainer for 11 years, so it hit me that, well, I'm good at,
Put the mic closer, you so here.
I'm good at, with fitness. But I don't know if I want to develop a business in fitness. So I don't want to say that I don't know how, but to me, it may be a little bit more challenging to think about how do I become an entrepreneur that is not a social entrepreneur, and finding that particular thing that I love, like I have this big passion for my nonprofit. I don't know how to develop that big passion to become an entrepreneur that
Can I
make
answer your question?
Of course.
Because I think it'll help you.
Yeah.
I think, and this is really in the book, which we're going to send to all of you, so if you didn't sign up for the book, make sure before you leave you sign up for the book. I think that young people have grown up in an era where you only have to do what you love, and I think that that's kakafufu. Wait, let me finish. I think that following your bliss is a beautiful thought, and it's a very first world entitled thing to think. I would rather say to you, if you're a girl in Afghanistan, do you have the privilege of following your bliss? I just think, I would say it a little different. I would say develop two parallel tracks, mission and money. Money is very important. So you can't have pajaritos en la cabeza, which means little birds flying in your brain. You have to know that you have to create things that are monetizable. And I'm not saying don't cultivate what you love. You live in a country that gives you the privilege of doing that. But you can't just, what did I tell you? I made 5 times the money in real estate than in TV. One of the reasons is because I'm passionate about TV. I've made some great hits in TV, and I've done horrible failures because I was too emotional about it. In real estate, it was a math formula. If the math didn't work, I wouldn't buy the building. Guess what? I've hit it out of the park in real estate. There's something to be said about something in your life that you're good at, that you're cold about, that you're mathematical about. And sometimes your passion and your intuition guides you in the right direction, and sometimes it takes you into the rabbit's hole. How many times have we fallen in love with people that our intuition told us we were madly in love and it was a catastrophe? So we can't just go by our emotions. Our emotions fail us. Math doesn't lie. Math doesn't lie. So parallel tracks, mission, and money. You can have your cake and eat it too. Yes.
I had a question about pitching. So in asking for money or looking for partnerships, what's an absolute yes for a pitch, and what's an absolute no when you want to pitch? And I have a second part question.
Well, I think that that's hard to answer because every single case is different, right? First of all, you have to have a product that you're pitching that is well thought out. Like, you can't just show up and pitch. You have to do your homework about what are the best practices of, you know, in some situations you have to have a business plan. In some situations in television you don't have to have a business plan, but you have to have other, you know, you have to have elements of a TV show like the cast or the script. So there are best practices in whatever business you're going to pitch in. But then after that, you have to, it's like being a lawyer in a court case. You have to really believe that your guy is not guilty. I mean, even if you don't, you better act as if, you know. In the case of anything you pitch, you better believe it's the best thing since sliced bread. And if you don't, and if you can't, you're not that kind of person, then you shouldn't be the one pitching. Because if someone doesn't feel, first of all, total competency from you, which means you did all your homework, but then total passion. Because people invest in people, not just ideas. And in people that have total confidence that they are going to win.
Can I ask the second part?
Sure.
It's about mentorship, and if one is trying to get into a separate field or different field, you mentioned examples where you didn't realize that you had all these female mentors, but now in retrospect, you can see how you embody them to a certain degree at this point in your life and career. What about seeking and cultivating mentorships that are strangers, essentially?
I'm really glad you asked that, because this is a chapter in my book. Because I think a lot of people ask me, can you be my mentor? Imagine if I said yes to every single person that asked me. I wouldn't have time to go to the bathroom. So I would say to you, what I say in the book is a mentor is not just someone that you go up to and say, can you be my mentor? Because that's a little off-putting to people that don't have any time. I say in the book that my number one mentor in finance is Warren Buffett. I've never met Warren Buffett. I mean, 90% of my mentors don't even know they're my mentors. And what I do is I choose them and then I study them. I read every article about them. I look at their behavior. I watch every TV show. And you know what? Maybe it's good that I don't know their ugly parts. I don't need to know their ugly parts because I am compartmentalizing one part of them that I want to acquire. And maybe I pick another mentor about how they look. And I pick another mentor about their house and how they live. And so I am a conglomerate of compartmentalized pieces of a lot of different people. And I would say 99% of them I've never even met or spoken to, and that's just perfect. So don't feel like somebody has to say to you, I will be your mentor. You're going to wait till you're 101. People don't have time. Every once in a while, like Nell Merlino has mentored me personally, and there are a few people that I've mentored personally. I don't have time either. So that doesn't mean you can't use that. I mean, Gloria Steinem that's why I love that you gave me that back, Kitty, because Gloria Steinem is somebody that I think about as a mentor. You know? And I think you can just listen to everything and then take it in and use that information to take you to the next level. Yes? And there's one in the back.
Thank you so much for this. This is so wonderful, and you are just becoming my mentor right now, and I can't wait to eat your book.
By the way, I was recently at USC at an alumni thing with a lot of students, and they made my day because they said, because I had been there a couple times with them doing a workshop, and they said, Nely, you know what we do? We think, what would Nely do in this situation? And I go, yes, I love it, because you know I'd ask for the money. You know I would.
Right.
And I'd be afraid, but I'd do it anyway.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Well, let me tell you a little bit about when do you ever, if something is not working, do you ever give up? And I'll tell you, let me be a little bit more specific about this, because I've been working on a project and I've been kind of like embodying everything that you're saying here. I am an author, I am a chef. You're speaking so much about chef. I am from Brazil. I wrote 2 books about Brazilian cuisine. I'm trying to pitch a show. I got several production companies interested in doing a show with me. And it's not coming, it's just not coming.
Yes.
And then there are so many times when I ask myself, what am I doing?
So let me answer that, because I think what you're saying is, when do we know when to keep going and when do we know to give up? And I think I would say, I persevere a lot. I mean, that is, I'm almost to a fault. I persevere because I'm a completion person. I really like to complete what I begin. But sometimes, even with that, I hit a wall and I have to surrender and realize time's up. And I think I'll tell you what I think I've done wrong. I think sometimes, if I had to do it over again, I'm going to use a word that's very Silicon Valley, but it's true. I would say that at times I didn't pivot quick enough. In today's time, we've heard that word pivot, which means you're doing something, but there's one little thing about it that's wrong. And no one's telling you, and you don't see it. And I would say that those 4 years that the money wasn't coming, I didn't stop I made the typical mistake that I now tell women not to do. What I didn't do is I didn't go join an organization that would have the answer and tell me the truth. So for instance, in entrepreneurship, I would say, if you're an entrepreneur, whether it's TV or anything else, you should join a chamber of commerce. You should join now it's called, what is it, YEO? EO, the Entrepreneur Organization, which is like group therapy for entrepreneurs. You should join a women's organization. Count me in. There's a million organizations, which, by the way, Natalie and I are developing an app off the book called The Hidden Money in America, because there's so many organizations and so many resources and so much money for all of us, and we just don't even go get help. We don't apply. We don't see. So what I did wrong in my early life that I corrected later in my life, it took me to 2001. When 9/11 happened, every company went, and I joined YEO at the time, called Young Entrepreneur Organization. And when I went to the first, it was like an AA meeting for entrepreneurs. I was like, oh my God, it's not me. Everybody's losing money right now. And we all talked about it, and we all figured out ways to reduce our overhead, and we got through it. To do this alone is a mistake. You can't do this journey, self-made or no self-made. Becoming self-made requires a team. If Kobe Bryant can have 30 people coaching him, why are we worth less than that? And that doesn't mean you have to pay for all that. That means you have to seek out, there are nonprofits deluxe to help us. As I tell women, there's so much free therapy. I highly recommend we all go to therapy. I wish I would have gone to therapy at 15. You have to cleanse. And if you don't believe in therapy, get a life coach, do something, trade. But we can't do this alone. It's painful, it's lonely, and unnecessary. It's stupid. And so you need to find out what's wrong with your plan. There might be one little thing that if somebody just told you, Iha, change this one thing, the whole thing turns around. You might have to pivot. Other questions? Yes. Yes.
You mentioned living in an environment of macho.
Macho.
Yes.
Oh, yes. Macho deluxe.
In what moment in your life, childhood, did you overcome this say,
Oh, this is going to make me cry.
calladita te ves más bonita?
Well, I'm going to be really honest as only I can be. And it's in the book, so if I wrote it in the book, I guess I can say it. So, and all the people in the room that know me well, I really continually chose men that were, I don't know, like fixer-uppers is the best way to say it. Latino men that were competing with me and that I felt like I had to save. And I really, thank God I went back to psychology school, and I really realized I was replicating my childhood as an immigrant, saving people. And it took me to be in a relationship on and off for 10 years with someone who was a magical, artistic, brilliant person, but who had really difficult demons, and have a child with a person who was incapable of being a parent. And I bottomed out on the dream I had for this perfect Latino family, and I bottomed out on thinking that he was going to save me in some way because he was more talented than me. And I finally found myself. And it's interesting because during that time, and I know that Kathleen knows this, not only was he in my life, at the time I had a boss, and he couldn't have been more macho and horrible. It was like I was surrounded by fixer-upper men. And I'm going to tell you something really weird. When I bottomed out on that, when I realized I'm done with this is so painful, I have never attracted those men ever again, not in my business, not in my personal life, nothing. And sometimes it takes us really being in pain to stop a behavior. But it doesn't serve us. And when you take all that energy that you put into those macho family members, men, bosses, and put it into yourself, and you make yourself a macha, and I mean that in the best way, as my friend Sandra Cisneros says, a chingona. When you become your own inner chingona, you soar. Because that's something no one can take away from you. It's a power that no one can take away from you. It's like, I'm not putting up with that shit anymore.
I was just wondering if you could tell us a little bit more about your real estate business.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you.
I'll tell you a great real estate story that Kathleen will love too. Kathleen, this is like going down memory lane. So when my business started going well, I had a contract with 20th Century Fox, who was my client. And 20th Century Fox in Los Angeles gave me a little office, like a little office building on the Fox lot, which, believe me, is very glamorous, very glamorous. It's kind of a crappy little building, but you're on the Fox lot, you go to lunch, and you see Denzel Washington, and all this. And we were all in the aura of that glamour, right? And we were all like, oh my God, we got on the Fox lot, we're in Hollywood, right? And until I got the first bill for $45,000 for a trailer. And I go, ¿qué es esto? $45,000. And that's when the wheels started turning. I was so pissed. I was like, I thought they were giving me the building for free. Well, there is no free lunch, as we know. And I'm telling you, I was paying $45,000 for like, you know, I'm not kidding you. It was a trailer, like a, what do you call it? Like a mobile home. And I remember this day perfect. Barbara, who we worked with, I said, Barbara, we're moving out of here. And I, because I was a New Yorker, I go, what's the crappiest town in LA? Venice, California. I go, that's where we're moving. And I started looking at buildings in Venice. And I found a building that was like super cheap. That if I bought it, even with a mortgage, I was paying $12,000 a month instead of $45,000. And I'll never forget the day that I went to the staff and I said, we're moving to Venice. And everybody goes, oh my God. And Barbara, who worked with me, said, you've worked so hard to get to the Fox lot in Hollywood. Why are we moving to the slums? And I said, Barbara, you think Fox is our Prince Charming. And we have to build a brand. That's Rupert Murdoch's brand. That's not our brand. Where we go is where the brand goes. We can always come here. We can drive in and go to lunch here. But we have to build our own brand and our own money. And we had like a fight about it. And even Kathleen, you were nervous too. You were like, esta niña, you're going crazy. You're going to go broke. And I knew, just math. What did I tell you? Math doesn't lie. 45,000 minus 12, that's a lot of savings. And I knew that that was money we needed to build a business. And that's where my real estate thing began. And from there, I really was fearless, but it was all math formulas. So what did I do? I moved to Venice, which in 1998 was gang infested. Who cares? I'm a New Yorker. I bought 5 buildings around my building. Then I bought in New York, in Times Square, when nobody was buying, and I flipped it. And I bought all over the country. I didn't just buy in LA. But again, math formulas. I would never fall in love with a building. And when right before the bad economy in 2007, we already knew things were going wrong. I either sold buildings or rented them all. And so when 2008 hit, that everybody was broke, I had all this revenue and I never had to work again. Amen. And by the way, if you don't think that's worth doing, if that's not worth being self-made, it is. Because from that moment on, I have been able to do everything I want to do because I want to. And that is happiness. There's a lot of happiness in not worrying about survival. And we don't realize that till we accomplish it. Any other questions? Yes?
How are you navigating your real estate investment? Were you doing all the research independently and the due diligence, or like what other resources were you using, and to also manage your other investments?
Great question. I did find a real estate mentor. So when I went to Venice, I found this woman who was at the time 70 years old, and she was a real estate agent, and she was showing me the buildings and this and that, but she was really smart, like I knew she was smart. And she said, well, I went from zero to, I started with $2,000 and I have $10 million in the bank, plus buildings. And I went, well, she knows more than I do. And so I became the daughter she never had. And what I did, and this is a big lesson, and it's so funny because some of my friends meet her and they go, she's so, she's kind of rough, she's kind of, because she's very direct. I love direct people. So I took her to dinner a lot. And she didn't have any kids. She didn't have, and she is, I love her to death. I write about her in my book. She has made me more money than all the TV shows put together by guiding me. I do not buy a building without asking her. I just don't. And she's someone I cultivated a relationship with. And, sometimes you do get to the point where you can cultivate a relationship with someone that mentors you. And now I'm in a relationship with a man that happens to be in commercial real estate. So that helped me too because he knows how to rent the buildings to huge companies, right? So he's really helped me rent my buildings to I was renting buildings to people. He now rents them to Google, who pay a lot. He explained to me how you need people that have lines of credit that'll guarantee the building, which again, as I go along, I learn and I learn. Now, I'll tell you what I didn't know until the last couple of years. I didn't know that as a business owner, you go to the Small Business Administration and you get a loan. They practically give you the building. So now in the book, I'm like, every person with a business has to buy their own building. Who knew the government has money and we don't apply for it? I wish I would have bought all my buildings through the SBA. I didn't know. So I think the biggest problem we all have is an information gap. I'm going to tell you something. I'm going to tell you 3 facts that are going to freak you out. Since 2012, more women are starting businesses in the United States than getting married. What does that tell you? Fact number 2, there is more, how they say there are no jobs? There's more money for entrepreneurship in America for women than there are jobs. Why are we not getting this money? Because there is an information gap. You don't know where to look. You don't know where it is. And there's money set aside for women. There's money set aside for African American women. There's money set aside for Latinas, for Asian, for LGBT, everybody. And we don't know. Earmarked money based on the fact that we're the #1 consumers in America. Money in corporations for contracts, huge contracts. Money in the government. Money in contests that you don't have to pay back. And yet, very few people apply for these things. So that's one of the gaps I want to cover in the book and in the app. Oh, no!
That's
Okay.
fine.
One last question.
We don't want to leave them abandoned.
Hello. I found your speech very motivational and very relatable to day-to-day life. I just wanted to know, how do you prioritize? Because we live in New York City. We have so much going on. Last June, I got my position as a pastry sous chef. So you have you have so many things going on, and now I'm like, okay, I'm gonna be a chef, but do I want to sell my own? Do I want to be my own business? Do I want to sell my own? My boss just told me that he's gonna start his own business. So you're just being pulled from so many different directions. And I know you said money is, you want to go where the money is, but at this point you don't know how to.
Let me answer your question. Because you're a youngin. I love youngins because I want you to. Okay, so tell me somebody you admire that's 40 or 50 or 60, whatever, somebody older than you that you admire, that you go, wow, I really like that person's life, even if it's part of their life.
There's so many people,
But
but
pick somebody in your field that you think is just,
lately I have been thinking about my first boss. When I was 17, I was working at Starbucks, and I feel like I was 17, and at the time she was 26, which is how old I am now. And I think about how much she's taught me and how much I meet people my age and I'm like, no one's taught you this. Yeah.
But let me ask you, I want you to even think bigger than that. Like when you're telling me you're a sous chef. Tell me the name of a chef out there that's got money, that's doing well. Who do you think of? Think of somebody. Because you need to think about, if you don't know that, you need to find that person.
Yeah,
so that
because when you kind of entered the hospitality industry, they kind of tell you, don't think about money. Think about the self-satisfaction you get from it.
Of course, they're trying to exploit
so
you.
Now and it's like
I would tell you that too, if I wanted you to work 20 hours a week,
So it's like
40 hours a week.
There's so many different things.
But okay,
that
but is there a chef that you look up to that you think, man, I'd love to be like that woman, and she's got a product line, and who would that be?
In my field, there's not many women, so I feel like the women I work with now, we're all like kind of up and coming.
Martha, I think you need to think about something. Like, do you know
Okay.
that what's her name? Lawson? Nigella Lawson. Do you know who she is? The British chef. She's beautiful. Bueno, by the way, you need to find a role model. That you find somebody that's got everything that you go, wow, I like that person's life. And
Great.
reverse engineer that person's life. Start there. And down the road, you might find 2 or 3 in different areas. You've got to go, what would it have taken for that person to get there?
Right.
And start there. That doesn't mean you might not have a different thing, but this person did this. Again, I think we have to think bigger. Think bigger. I mean, again, the best time in history for women. So why are we thinking small? Like, I only want to get to 2 years from now. I want you to get to 50 and be una chingona. Y tener plata and create a brand for yourself and be a famous. Do you know how many famous? This is a great time to be a chef, by the way.
Yeah.
That's why I want women to go into that. It's a great time. Find someone and then reverse engineer their life and start making goals for yourself. Because until you see a picture that you can go for, you're not going to do the work it takes to go there and go, I want that, I want that, I want that.
That makes a lot of sense. Thank you.
You had a question. And
One
you-
last
but
question
not
here.
least.
My question may not be related to entrepreneurship, but I have watched like the TV show you made, this one.
Yes.
When I was in China, I could.
You
only,
watched it in China?
Yeah, but I could only find part of it. But I really like it, and and there is kind of sensation in China that young girls do plastic surgeries and to become like beautiful. And I find that your TV show is really thought provoking because like it's really like ironic because like once they become beautiful, like a lot of problems are solved in their lives. So it seems like kind of biased, but at the same time, I think that it gives people convenience that young girls can make of. So I really want to hear about your opinions on beauty and being beautiful, and how can like young girls pursuing beauty without
Well,
not
I'll
in
tell
it.
you because I think that show is really not about what it appears to be about. I mean, if you look at that show, there was a lot of psychology in that show. I will tell you that I know a lot of supermodels that are gorgeous and they don't feel empowered at all. And so I would have to say to you that, you know, the outside stuff is kind of icing on the cake, but it's not the cake. If you don't do the kind of work that I'm telling you, brick by brick, inside of you, to find your worth, to know why, you know, who you are inside, and it takes a while. You know, when you're young, it's hard because the world is sending you messages that you're never enough. But you are enough. That's why I tell you, for me, when I killed this notion of Prince Charming and that someone was going to save me, and when I did the inner work, somehow the outside stuff is so much easier because it's just, again, it's just how you present yourself. It's like a costume that you present yourself depending on what scenario you're in to kind of finish the package. It's not the package. The inside job is the package.
Thank you.
Please give me a round of applause, Nely Galán. Thank you.